Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Focus on Parliament, where we put our lens on the business of Parliament and the different issues that they're trying to interrogate, to analyze, but then also the voice of the people that they represent. Today, we want to put our lens on the Karamoja crisis and the rollout of the PDM cash. But critical for us to maybe hang on is the fact that Parliament resumes business next week after a 2-week recess period. And we want to see how, the conversation and the debate around the Karamoja crisis will roll out, and we'll find out what accountability points will be there and what actions will be taken after. We know for a fact the IGG says they are going to investigate the matter. So today we want to, put a lens and have this conversation on what we can make of the Karamoja crisis post the expose on the Iron Sheets and, the critical high-profile people that were involved in that. But to help me have this conversation, I have Mr. Okidi Christopher, who is a political economist and lawyer. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much. It is always a pleasure to be on the program and especially talk about issues. This time, the issue of Karamoja really, I think it is going to be very exciting. And good enough, we have the Honorable, who is a victim of what happened.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also on the show, I have MP Chekwii County. Welcome, Honorable.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being in this show this afternoon.
And maybe to begin with you, because this is your area, the Karamoja region is quite I think it has 9 districts.
Yes.
And we cannot begin to imagine that most of the districts haven't even gotten the part of the share of the Iron Sheets, let alone the goats. But from what you know, or what you've seen, or what you even, with your knowledge of what is going on in the Karamoja region, what exactly comes to your mind when you think about the Karamoja crisis?
Yeah, thank you very much. Before I possibly go to the crisis or the scandal that came to light about 10 or so days ago, I just want to give perspective into the background to this particular intervention in the region. Around October 2019, they re-emerged significant insecurity in Karamoja, a place that had been peaceful for the past close to 10 years. And it happened at the time when politics was at play, till up to when we elected to parliament and were about to be sworn in. So we swung into action as elected leaders, especially parliamentarians, to make sure we see what can be done. We carried out what we call the peace caravan by moving across the region to carry out some meetings with the leaders and the local communities to see how that issue can be sorted out and calm the situation in Karamoja. Then we had an interaction with His Excellency, the President of Uganda, because what we gathered during our caravan was that the people in Karamoja knew now that there was increased insecurity, which required the intervention of the security of the country. So we really called for disarmament exercise to take place, and that's when government intervened. So alongside the disarmament, based on the previous disarmament, the other successful one that had been there in early 2000s, we definitely knew what goes on with it. Other than carrying out the disarmament and leaving the people that have been disarmed, we thought there should be some interventions, especially for the disarmed people. And we thought quickly what should be done. We thought there should be mobilization, community mobilization, talking about peace and talking about accepting disarmament so that we can start with the voluntary disarmament. Then we also said, after they are disarmed, what can we do? We said possibly we should retool them with some items, and we thought about livestock. And we said maybe we should give these people oxen and maybe ox plows and that sort of thing. And then some other alternative livelihoods, software activities. When we went through what we had proposed, His Excellency the President quickly went through that item on livestock.
Mm.
And he actually proposed to us that I think instead of going for oxen, I think we better go for goats.
Mm.
Goats are quick multiplying and they can increase wealth quite faster.
Mm.
And we bought the idea, and I think it was right, and that's why we thought of that intervention of goats. Then the other one was about after these people really settle down, I'm sure they want to, establish possibly enterprises and also settle in settlements, which can really give them better, improved livelihood.
Mm.
So one of the areas we thought about was intervention on structures, and iron sheets came into our mind for the reason that, characteristically people in Karamoja build thatch using grass, and normally it has its disadvantages. It is easily destroyed. You have to replace quite often, and also the risks to the environmental degradation. So we thought we should get them iron sheets. So that's how those areas of interventions came. So we zeroed down to 3: the mobilization, intervention for the iron sheets, and then the goats for them. Yeah, so that's how it came. And around December 2021, being a member of the budget committee, I participated in the approval of that supplementary of 39 billion. And I want to state that really the members of parliament who were in that meeting were so welcome and really wanted to support Karamoja. So that's when that happened and the money was approved. And I'm sure the release was made in the first quarter, the third quarter of the 2021-2022. And I'm sure that must have kickstarted the processes and the procurement and that sort of thing. And I'm sure by May the procurements had been done, because the distribution of iron sheets was launched by His Excellency the President in June in Moroto, where they delivered some iron sheets just for that exercise. Yeah, and that's when they delivered the 1,000 iron sheets into Moroto district through the cow, and that particular exercise they distributed 650 to some youth who benefited by getting about 20, 25 etc. So that's when the process. And during his speech, His Excellency the President assured people that the next distribution will kickstart within 3 weeks. We are talking about June 2022. Yeah, but we continue having also engagements with the ministry, because the iron sheets were not forthcoming, and we're receiving really requests, inquiries from the beneficiaries. So what the Minister of Karamoja Affairs, which was now the docket under which this particular intervention was under, carried out, I think, the needs assessment, and eventually came up with a list originated from the districts for the various beneficiaries. This iron sheet was supposed to benefit 5,000 youth.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's the big number, and they were supposed to be 100,000 of them. Of course, at a rate of 20 per person. Yeah, so that's what happened, and we had had actually various engagements with the Minister of Karamoja Affairs, and even on 2 occasions we had an engagement with the Prime Minister when we were asking what had happened with this, and they told us the things would be coming soon. And at one time we had an engagement with the Prime Minister, and she assured us, as politicians, these are things you just have to watch and keep your hands off, which I think was right. And we knew it was meant well. So we also taken aback when this news came that some iron sheets had been gotten with some people in Bugizi sub-region, in the districts of Nambisundwa and I think Manafwa. And really this reawakened us that with the disengagements we have been having, how could this have happened within our awareness and without information from the ministry? So that's when we came to know about this. But the real disturbing thing is, as far as I'm concerned, other than the 1,000 that were used for launching, no other iron sheets within our knowledge as parliamentarians was made known to us. And, continuously we had been asked about this, and we knew, I think, the process of procurement. But I want also to say that earlier on, I think in around August or maybe September or June 2022, they had delivered some goats to some beneficiaries across the region. And in the early engagements we had had with the ministry, actually we had asked the ministry that for this money to create value in Karamoja, why don't we procure the goats from Karamoja? After all, one,
True.
they can manage the environment they are used to, and is the type that people are used to even managing. And actually they brushed that aside, telling us that because the procurement had already begun, it will be difficult. Then also with the iron sheets, we said, but there are some local traders there or suppliers who can actually procure these items so that this money is plowed into the region.
Sure.
Yeah, we also brushed aside because they said they wanted to do some special specifications for this type of iron sheets, and I think they wanted that they colored and then pre-painted and a certain particular gauge. But I'm sure if there were businessmen who could do that, that would happen.
Yeah.
So these are some of the ways we thought actually such an intervention would create some multiplier effect in the region, since we are talking about is socio-economic transformation.
Yeah.
So that's the background to it. But of course, what has happened is something very, very pathetic to say it, because before even the real beneficiaries have had even a look at the iron sheets, the things are already seen in other regions. And of course, you must have seen through the press reports and also reports from the office of the Prime Minister that various people from other parts of the regions have received these items. So that's the situation. And I think this is, according to us, we as leaders of Karamoja, we have decided to take this mantle to make sure justice prevails. One, we want to make sure that what was meant for Karamoja is actually delivered and received by the Karamojans in the way it was supposed to be. Even the yet to be delivered, to be made deliveries for the goats, because what has been delivered is about or less than 30% out of the 75,000 goats that were supposed to be delivered there.
And the money has already been spent.
Yeah, the money has been spent, of course. That one is, there's no doubt about that. So this is the station. So what we have done so far as leaders from Karamoja, we have taken up one. We really sounded a disappointment and strongly came out to condemn that act, and we also called for the minister to resign. We have tried to get in touch with the minister. Unknown phones are off. Our office is not reachable. It is closed, allegedly that she's on leave. So, and we have tried to get both ministers so that we get audience with them and they explain to us this. But of course, as you have seen, uncharacteristically, no statement has come from them, though other beneficiaries have actually mentioned, have accepted that they got this. So we have kickstarted that process of making sure that this is done. Other than the presser which we made, we also wrote a notice to the Speaker through the Clerk of Parliament for a motion to censure this minister if she doesn't resign. And we also wrote a letter to His Excellency, who is the appointing authority of this, this minister, expressing a vote of no confidence on the minister. Because as leaders from Karamoja, we strongly believe now, as of now, that unless it is proved otherwise, they have no moral authority to talk about this. The reason why really we think so is these items have been procured, but they have opted to keep them in stores, according to what I've been hearing, that the items are there. But if you really know, this was an emergency intervention. So I'm sure immediately procurement was done. They should have done the deliveries so that the beneficiary is actually done. And this was an 8-month initiative or program that should have been done. So in other words, we really believe that this minister has abused her office. She has really abused her office. Why? there's really an omission.
Yeah.
An omission is issues, items that are supposed to be in Karamoja have ended up in another place. Things that are supposed to have been delivered right from June 2022 have not been delivered as of February 2023.
Yeah.
That's over 7 or 8 months
Yes.
since then, that are in action to do that tantamount to failure to perform our duties. And really, the abuse of office is really a misnomer because one, the act of diverting these items to other places is a very unlawful awful act because the actions are outside the confines of the law, and these are actions that are punishable by law. In fact, they are even criminal.
Yes.
If we have to go by that. The other ground really is mismanagement, failure significantly to perform our duties, to run, to control and manage an institution of Ministry of Karamoja Affairs. Yeah, so that's the station, and we have assured the people of Karamoja that we shall really carry on with this task up to its logical conclusion. Yeah. And as we speak, through our concerns to the Speaker of Parliament, the matter has been forwarded to the Committee on Presidential Affairs.
To be on the order paper?
No, for an investigation to kickstart, because that will form the basis on which the censure can be done. And this exercise is starting on Monday, the 27th December, and they have the committee of that. The clerk of that committee has invited various institutions. They have invited the Karamoja Parliamentary Group. They have invited officials from Office of the Prime Minister. They have invited people from Ministry of Finance, and they have invited leaders from the districts of Karamoja, RDCs, CAOs, LC5 chairpersons, and other people, so that they kickstart this process, so that this thing is if there are any actions that are contrary, they will definitely be established. And appropriate action.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And maybe to bring Mr. Okidi in, the Daily Monitor and the New Vision published, quite extensive conversation and essay around the beneficiaries, the said beneficiaries, outside the 5,000 that should have benefited. Most of them were ministers and high-profile officers. And in the Daily Monitor, on the Iron Sheets scandal, the Finance Minister, Matia Kasaija, is quoted to say, "I didn't ask for them, but they were allocated to us, especially to us who have constituencies." But, the supplementary budget that was approved was for Karamoja as an emergency initiative. How do we come to a point where key high-profile ministers are the ones now benefiting from the iron sheets that should be in Karamoja?
Yeah. I don't know if all of you realize that this is not the first time such a thing is happening in the country.
True.
And we've had the Northern Uganda Social Action Fund. And even the minister of Karamoja at some point, I remember in the previous parliament, was accused for actually flying several times to Israel on money meant for Northern Uganda, for the recovery of Northern Uganda. We've also had in Tandikwa. I don't know if you remember the Valley Dam project of Speciosa Wandira Kazibwe. I think in the early 90s. And then, so we've had a lot of these initiatives that have actually not worked.
Yeah.
Why? Because one, they are intended to deliver what should have actually not been the role of the state.
Sure.
You see that? Because as Okidi, I think the role of the state should be, should be restricted. I prefer a minimalist state. A state that ensures that it provides public goods. then it lets the people sort out their own personal emergencies or personal socioeconomic or personal economy.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a state that is going to say, if Karamoja needs affirmative action, let us build roads so that people in Karamoja can now use the roads to access the markets.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, and then also, no one will definitely go and steal a road, you see? Although anyway, in this country, I'm told already, even a lake, people can get a land title for a lake. People can also get a land title anyway for a road.
Yeah.
But I think to solve these kind of problems, because these are physical items that can actually be diverted. I have never had the people of Karamoja complain, for example, about programs that are intended to work on the software of Karamoja.
Yeah.
Like, for example, alternative basic education for Karamoja. I've never had anyone complain about that. So and by the way, even when you look at the youth livelihood funds, they have not worked. Operation Wealth Creation and its predecessor. What was its predecessor?
And I think also maybe to also add on that conversation that you're engaging is now we had PDM for the Karamoja region. On top of that, there've been a lot of other initiatives, socio-economic initiatives that the government has done outside of Karamoja as well, but for the national, population. We've had Emyoga, we've had Operation Wealth Creation.
There's even PDM coming. There's even PDM coming.
We've
had UPE. Yeah. So then the question now, for me, I actually would think that the benchmark for the expectation about government's expectation from Karamoja, the benchmark should actually be previous government programs. How has government handled UPE? How has government handled NUSAF? How has government handled, for example, PRDP? How has government handled in Tandikwa? The Karamoja Valley Dams project, how has government handled it? So for me, I think that should actually be the benchmark for government to see whether government can actually, this handout approach of government can deliver. And I think there is all evidence all over the place to suggest that handouts approach by government cannot deliver any proper affirmative action. Yeah, because the intention, let's look at the intention. For all intent and purposes, Karamoja deserves affirmative action because one, Karamoja is susceptible to climate change. So they need climate resilience and climate adaptation and balancing this with people's livelihoods. Secondly, we also have cross-border insecurity because we have the Turkana and the Porokot from the Nakapiripirit area actually crossing over to raid cattle. So there is insecurity and also when you look at the law that the border regions do not have state presence like South Sudan, then you definitely, as a country, you need to protect your citizens. Now, government, of course, while government has come up with security measures like the anti-stock theft unit created in Karamoja, it needs to be supported by building the capacity of state institutions in Karamoja. You see? Because once you build the capacity of state institutions in Karamoja, like the justice system is working very well, then questions around cattle raid between individuals can be handled within the justice system. Then secondly, if, for example, you have the road infrastructure and actually these systems are supposed to first of all, upgrade Karamoja, because Karamoja also needs, by the way, cultural strategy to upgrade Karamoja and integrate it into the national economy, into a modern economy. Because it is not going to be sustainable for Karamoja also to be left in battles around cattle, while the rest of the country is developing, is building sophistication in terms of infrastructure and in terms of economic. So it would really not be fair. So government should do one thing. Government of Uganda should shift away from these waste of money in handouts. Because at the end of it all, you can never give iron sheets to everyone in Karamoja.
Maybe what I can say, is it possible that in this moment, a handout to Karamoja would have been ideal in starting conversation around development and, you know, that initiative pushing people into alternatives and creating alternatives outside, because the alternative then would be cash. Or the alternative would be, you know, stringent government programs within Karamoja that are meant to, you know, push the government's direction into, you know, focusing on the region Karamoja as it is, without giving anyone money. But the problem with that is there are economic challenges for the people of Karamoja that most probably will not be addressed if you do not give them a starting point. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, but you see, what we should not forget that this problem of Karamoja did not start today.
I hear you.
And so there is absolutely no excuse. Because remember, even when the British were in charge of this country, Karamoja was a neglected part. In fact, they never allowed anybody to access. And they said it was directly under British control. Now, why they put it directly under British control? And by the way, one of the reasons why Karamoja is the sick man of Uganda is because of the resources, minerals, all over Karamoja. You see? So, and I think that is now the questions that the political elite of Karamoja should confront. You see? Because these are the issues of iron sheets disappear. Those iron sheets, those ones it doesn't even need MPs to really deal with it. These are just criminals who have abused their offices. And if state institutions are working, then the IGG by now.
And stepping aside.
Yes, the IGG by now should be dealing with it. So, Tricia, we shouldn't think that the Karamoja problem started today. And to also say that it is just a starting point. How then do you start in 36 years in power? Or in Uganda got independence in 1962. It is now 61 years. So how do you then say that this is the starting point? What Karamoja needs is, one, the state should ensure that Karamoja has the potential, the economic potential to thrive. Karamoja actually borders is an easy access to Sudan, an easy access to Ethiopia. And once roads, infrastructures are opened up, that entire place can turn around to be an economic viable place. And then, instead of saying you're going to provide these handouts for youth, 5,000 iron sheets, I'm told, were meant for youth. What you need to actually, what they needed to actually do is to ensure that they provide factories in Karamoja so that the youth are employed. Now, once the youth are employed, they will have more incentive to go and work in those factories, have better careers if government invests in those institutions, and it will dissuade them from engaging in cattle raids. So for me, I think that is the youth, you call the youth Karachuna.
Yes.
So what should actually be done for your young people is not iron sheets. It is to lobby for government investments, to put industries, to put factories, to employ the Karachuna. And that is when we shall dissuade them from engaging into cattle raids. For me, actually, I think that is the strategy that can work for Karamoja.
And I hear you. Maybe you can generate?
Yeah, thank you, Tricia. I am in agreement with Mr. Okidi concerning the interventions. What, of course, he is talking about is really right, to set base for a sustainable economic transformation in the region.
Yeah.
That's why you talk about factories, setting infrastructure which can make the place accessible to the market. That's a sustainable and a long-term or medium-term initiative that can be done. This particular intervention was really some immediate stopgap.
Yes.
Immediately after disarming them or
Disarmament.
during the process of, disarming also their mentality. That really, other than thinking of moving in the bushes looking for cows to steal, they can be an alternative here. So that was one way we could just think of a short-term gap. That's why I should say it was a well-thought thing. One, the type of settlements which are in Karamoja. We also want to embrace urbanization. There's an urbanization strategy in this country. And through urbanization, the people can now be engaging in commercial activities, trade, and etc. That's when they can embrace. And one of the immediate things a pastoralist can go for is something close to that. Is how, pastoralists generally across the world can never live without livestock. They can never live even if you've made it modern and that sort of thing. So that was something that they could immediately think of. They can be told to fall back to. And by the way, these goats, we did think about giving someone one goat. No. It was like giving someone 15 goats. Okay? Which you can use for milk.
But I heard the goats were, accounted for at 600, 800,000 per goat.
Yeah.
Is that plausible?
Yeah, well, I think I should say, like I told you, I was really involved in this particular supplementary. I think that those were the price range that were quoted even during the budgeting process when we were considering the supplementary. So no, it may not be very far from that. It may not be very far from that, because what we came to learn later, we had budgeted about 22 billion for those goats.
Yes.
But we were made to say that an additional 3 billion was made for that procurement. So we're talking about 16 or 15 goats, so that someone can really have and start of a livelihood with that and definitely create wealth. Then the other bit I wanted just to react was about why this is something which even MPs should not be seeing. We have to be realistic. This is Uganda. If there is no person to lead in this campaign, in this following this criminality, this thing can be swept down the carpet. You can see what is happening now. People are trying to explain themselves. Now, if there is no person who can read Twitter, who can read a newspaper, how would Karamoja know that actually their Mabatis have gotten lost?
Maybe it was just an extreme point.
So we really have to take this mantle. Eventually, we shall take the fight to the people.
Yes.
Okay? Yeah. Eventually, we shall take these people. In fact, what I would even expect is these ministers will have to go and explain to this Karamoja.
Yes.
I remember the last interaction I had with the Minister of State for Karamoja in the lobby of Parliament. I told her, by the way, where we had a rally the other time, they're asking for the goat you promised. Can we go there soon so that you tell it to them? So we really have to take this mantle. These are not just the people they have not picked 2 Mabatis, my friend.
Yes.
We are talking about 100,000 Mabatis. We are talking about 9 billion shillings. Not any person, not an ordinary Ugandan can fight such. So we have to take this initiative. Really, we are the first people to do this. So that's why that's what I thought I could react.
And Honorable, on that note as well, when you look at Uganda today, we've had, a scandal and money lost in rotten seeds delivered to the people of Uganda. We've had fake pangas, and I saw Honorable Mao get one and break it. It was a foldable panga. We've had problems with hose as well. We've had, spilled beans of COVID, that were given in COVID. And then here we are with iron sheets and goats. And these are just some of the critical issues in public service delivery, but then also in social initiatives that, make us question not just the humanity, but the integrity of the people that are in office at that time. And constantly, different people come in and still do the same things. Is there a benchmark on which we can, hold public servants to account for one, disrespecting the people of Uganda, because it's, utmost disrespect of humanity. But then also, why is there a mismatch in integrity when it comes to service in these public offices?
Yeah, I want to tell you, Tricia, there are benchmarks, there are standards, there are policies in place. The things are written down there. Me as an accountant, I can tell you, even if you put the strongest of controls, as long as there's collusion, that can beat any type of control. So what am I saying? These things are there, but we have decided not to live by them. And who should actually do this? It is you and me. If we know when such a thing happens, obviously any rational human being, when this is mentioned, your name is tied to such things, the first thing you should say is, let me step aside and I be proved. I want to show you people I'm clean. But you know what has happened in this country? Is people insist, people believe in actually denying, because they know, over time, possibly with the rest that are involved, they can run away from this. So what is important is just to remove the dust of these standards, these benchmarks. And leaders should be the first people actually to demonstrate this. Possibly even the appointing authority should be able to to crack the whip. We are not talking about something mysterious. We are talking about tangible things. So really, the lead should be taken by those on authority. The day you are appointed, whether a member of parliament, whether a minister, whether a cow, whether a permanent secretary, you swear oath of allegiance. And if you break the rules, the standing orders, if this was a civil servant, he should have stepped, it would have been interdicted. And then investigation is carried. If it's okay, it will be clear. If it's not, then definitely prosecution and the rest will follow. But people are just creating a certain type of practice.
Is there a fear? Especially now, this is to the IGG. Is there a fear in investigating such high-profile people? Because when you hear, the Prime Minister in such a scandal, the Minister of Finance in such a scandal, the third Deputy Prime Minister in such a scandal, you start to wonder, because this is on a high scale, it's so high level. Is there a fear in interrogating? Because I'd imagine this would take front and center. But in the words of, the IGG Bete Kamia was that, so we are still dealing with NSSF. We had already NSSF on the table. We had KCCA on the table. And this is here. And I imagine it should be critical for us to interrogate it now as it's happening, so that there is no room for error. Whereas other things, is it an issue of capacity? Is it an issue of fear in interrogating such a critical issue? Where we stand in Kampala today, in Uganda today, in fact.
Like I've told you, we have policies, we have standards. I want to tell you, the office of the IGG is very empowered. There is a law that gives the IGG the powers to investigate, to prosecute, even to prosecute.
Oh, wow.
So, the tools are there. The people are there. The IGG is there. There are two deputies. There are staff below there. They can be able to do this. So that should not be any excuse of fear. It is empowered enough. So what is important is those charged with that responsibility should actually show cause. Should actually take action based on the mandate they have in those offices. So there's no excuse. This can be done and should be done. Whether a prime minister or what, they are capable of being investigated. The IGG has powers of the High Court. They can summon anyone. So nobody can really tend to create fear in the operations of such an office, unless the person in charge or holding the office creates the fear for themselves. So that should be able to be done. And I'm sure it has the capacity. It has the capacity to investigate even more than 3 institutions at a go.
Yes.
Very big institutions. So that one will not be an excuse. But what I know is their radars have picked this, the feelers have picked, and they have also started, they have swung in. Like the IGG said the other time during NSSF, it is fine. Let the Parliamentary Select Committee investigate, but for them, they are also investigating. Just like what is happening now, the State House Anti-Corruption Unit is investigating this. ISO is also investigating. The institutions will do. What we know is they will report to their institutions, and the respective institutions have processes that will be done to do that. But for us, as leaders of Karamoja, we have a latitude, we have an opportunity, we have a pedestal to do this.
And I hope you take this chance to go back to your constituency people and alert them and let them know what's going on, because it's the imagination that the people of Karamoja know what's going on.
Yes, well, I want to tell you, Tricia, that as a member of parliament, I am actually in tabs with the constituency. It is very easy for them to know, and they already know what is going on. Some of them through social media, they have known what is happening. And actually, the other time when this thing came, they told us as leaders, we must be seen to lead. And of course, it was a given. We are definitely going to lead. We are going to do this as leaders of Karamoja. So the people of Karamoja will definitely get to know this. We shall be updating them, like I've told you. Even the local leaders, the LC5, the cows, will be coming here. And after the interrogation, that will be an indicator. That will demonstrate to the people of Karamoja something is going on right now. And we definitely bring this to their attention. Yes.
And let me bring Okidi.
Is there a possibility? Is there a possibility of the members of parliament to go and address rallies?
That is what I imagine.
To address
to
rally.
Do a real caravan like you did before.
like to do a rally in the area, in the constituencies of the thieves, of those who stole.
Yeah, but I think what we shall do anyway, which is a given. I'm sure whether I go to a church now, whether I go to a gathering of youth, whether I go to a primary school, this is something that is worth informing any Ugandan. So this is something we shall definitely take time. We shall definitely have an opportunity to share this with Ugandans in any forum that happens, whether in a church or otherwise. We are able to mention this.
And maybe also on that note, I noticed with concern that, and then because I've been tracking and I've been seeing the conversations we've been having, and most of our conversations are highly on corruption issues, and it seems like there is no one being held accountable. Today, the IGG is talking about a declaration of wealth exercise that should end by the end of March. But I'm more concerned because it almost feels like a distraction to the reality that we are living today. If I'm to look back, and I'm being moderate on the critical scandals we've had just between January and February. We began with a conversation on why the Entebbe airline report wouldn't be had. That conversation wouldn't be had in Parliament. To this day, it's a conversation we still want to have, because the issue is that there were so many gaps in service delivery, in issues happening in the Entebbe airport. From there, we moved to NSS. We moved to KCCA and why roads weren't being worked on. Because the reality was, between Christmas, we realized most of the roads entering the CBD had too many potholes, and they were impassable. And so the question was, how is it there was a budget approved in the 10th Parliament to build new roads, not even to repair, and here we are, we have so many potholes and so many patched up roads. We moved from there and we went to the Auditor General's report that also lifted a lid on a lot of the mismatch in financial management in a lot of public and government entities. And here we are. We are talking about, theft. I don't want to call it, people gave. No, it was theft of iron sheets and goats. Because if we went into the conversation of goats, you'd be surprised. Now we're on iron sheets. If we began the conversation on goats, you'd be surprised. So on a constant, it looks like we are in a vicious cycle of corruption case after corruption case with no end, with no logical conclusion to it. How is it that in the first 2 months of the year, we are grappling with critical corruption issues with a 50 trillion national budget looking at us?
Yeah. One thing you need to know is that service delivery in Uganda is affected by corruption. That one is not contested. And one of the conveyor belts of corruption in the country is public procurement processes. And that is why when you come up with a program, or if you come up with an event, I am sure when you suggested it to the budget committee in Parliament, I think at the finance and in the line ministry, I'm sure there was no contention, because any chance for procurement is a chance for primitive accumulation of wealth in Uganda. Because, by the way, we are still at that stage of primitive accumulation of wealth. All this corruption is primitive accumulation of wealth. Because a class system is shaping up. But unfortunately, it is shaping up at the expense of Karamoja. You see that?
For today.
Because, yes, today the rich want to get more richer than the poor. And who are the rich? They are actually the powerful. They actually can appoint. They have appointing powers. They have appropriation powers. They have approval powers, you know. And so and then remember, because we also operate a society which is new patrimonial, where if Okidi he works with the government, he takes care of the whole village, you know. So that corruption then now again becomes systemic. But the whole issue of corruption, I don't know if we shouldn't forget that when you talk about IGG, you know, IGG were also told to go slow. You remember that?
Yes.
Because there was a time that IGG wanted to do a wealth audit.
A lifestyle audit.
Yeah, a lifestyle audit on public officials. But then they were said, go slow. Because these people steal and actually invested in the economy. So now the question then is, actually, the whole issue is that why corruption is now, to use the word of Olarotono, rapacious in Uganda. Why corruption is very rapacious in Uganda is because it is safe to do it. It is safe to do it because there is no policy. Even when the policy exists, there are ways to circumvent it. And then the ruling elite completely do not have any interest. Because remember, Andrew Mwenda, by the way, made a very interesting argument which exposed the entire state and public service delivery in Uganda. He said in Uganda, corruption is a statecraft strategy. In fact, it is the cheapest and most cost-effective. You see that? Because, you see, why anyone who engages in corruption, there is a particular group of people who, when they engage in corruption, they actually get away with it. Why do they get away with it? There are actually theories. One, that because it takes NRM perhaps 1 trillion to keep power. Because, you know, power is very expensive to get and to keep. So you need money. You see that? So you need money to actually maintain power and keep it. So there are, maybe these are some other channels where money somehow, it is like a syndicate where it ends up into the whole issue of maintaining power in Uganda. So unless government can come out very clear on not condoning corruption, and the president reversing his statements and appearing more serious on tackling issues around corruption, then we the citizens have no other option than to think perhaps corruption is what sustains the system, and corruption is what feeds it, and corruption is all is their entire DNA and governance strategy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Honorable Aleper,
Yes.
and this is to wind up
And
our
by the way,
conversation.
before maybe Honorable Aleper comes in, I think Honorable Aleper, I was just actually trying to maybe over dramatize the fact that the political elite of Karamoja needs durable solutions, to think about durable solutions about Karamoja. But perfectly, the activism, the advocacy, and the cry around these Karamoja goats and is really within the province and work
I hear you.
of members of parliament.
And maybe also on that note, Honorable Aleper, the Karamoja region, the whole of it, has no opposition MP. And even the independent that is there is NRM leaning. With such a truth, do we imagine that, there is going to be a hard push on making sure that there is accountability? But then also, what next steps should we expect from the members of parliament from the Karamoja region
On this particular issue?
on this particular issue?
Yeah, I want to tell you actually, NRM, Karamoja is NRM.
Yes.
And it is there for a reason, and it is justifiable when people talk passionately about NRM. In fact, I want to tell you that an average voter there feels this government stabilized the region.
Oh, wow.
It really stabilized the region. At one time, it was almost a state of anarchy.
Yeah.
But then at one time, people in Karamoja used to have guns like we have pens. When you move now without a pen, you can't write a letter, you can't write a note, you can't write pay a withdrawal slip in a bank, etc. So that discomfort, it had become part of them. And really, it became even a tool for solving petty issues. Like you clash with your brother, he shoots you, or you shoot him before, and that sort of thing. So that's the reason, that's the background. And of course, there are certain things that have happened in the NRM government than they have happened before.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is, though we are NRM, when it comes to issues pertaining to the region, we don't compromise. We shall not compromise, and we have never compromised. If we have, that's why we advocate very vigilantly for Karamoja. Like when we came, we really set our agenda. There are 5 issues: education, water for livestock, natural resources, agriculture, etc. Those are areas we really. So for us, as where a service delivery is denied to Karamoja, we shall not shy away. We shall always stand out and talk about it passionately, without fear or favor. When there are issues of security in the region, we seek audience with His Excellency and we share it with them. If you get on any matters concerning the people of Karamoja, the leaders of Karamoja have never shied away because they are NRM, that they fear this. In parliament or in committees, when we interact with the government, the executive, we don't shy away because we're NRM. We really go for those matters and really try to argue them the way they are. So I want to tell you that for this particular matter, we shall not rest. In fact, as one of my colleagues stated recently, we shall see from the parliament who is with us. We want to see who in the executive is for us. For us means for Karamoja.
Yeah.
This is now, we are talking, when we talk of disarmament, we are talking about the lives of the people.
Yeah.
We are trying to save the lives of people. We are trying to stabilize the place from the doldrums of underdevelopment. So when someone does this, there's no way it directly affects me because I have people I lead, I have relatives, and the region is at stake. in this particular matter. So this one, we are taking it up to the furthest it can.
Yeah, I hear you. And gentlemen, as we wind this conversation down, I think in your statements, I'd want us to put a highlight on, the parish development model. But to center it for now, I want us to center it on the parishes within Karamoja, because this money is going to be rolled out, is being rolled out. But the conversations around PDM have been, there's been a dark cloud of corruption from the cows at the parish level, at the enrollment of the money. So as we go into the next, I don't want to talk of many years, because in the next 6 months we'll have a report on the PDM as of now. So when you go back into the next 6 months, what do you intend, or what do you imagine will be accomplished with the parish development model initiative in building, socio-economic infrastructure, in building sustainable livelihoods for people, especially for the people of Karamoja? I'll begin with you, Okidi.
Yeah.
Maybe also in your conclusion, you give us, just a narrative around these economic initiatives that have been brought by the NRM government.
Yeah. The parish development model, PDM, first of all, had a false start already, because although someone told me that the very first dispatchment was to first arrest the thieves. That is what they said. That they first said, let us first sample very little money so that the thieves come, we arrest them, and then we now roll out. But I don't think this country has shortage of thieves, particularly in the public service. Yeah, but the parish development model, from my understanding and from my vantage point of view, is that it wants to look at the parish as an engine of development.
Yes.
Which and according also to the budgeting processes of the country, we have the parish development committees. So it would really be, if well designed, it would actually be very interesting that the same people who prioritize, or if there was, for example, synergies that would be created between the monitoring of the people who design it, because allocations into a particular area is based on the priorities developed by people in that particular area under the parish development committee. That is of course according to my that is the knowledge I have according to government budgeting processes. So now, ideally, it would be interesting if you say you create linkages between the parish development committee in terms of monitoring, and then the parish chiefs, who are going to be the ones in charge of dispensing and ensuring that the money meets those particular services. I think that would be a very interesting approach, because in public service delivery, you don't entirely leave it to government. The citizens also have to play their social accountability role to see if their priorities as citizens are being addressed by the budgeting process. But the biggest worry is that you already have a carcass. You have carcasses of development initiatives under the NRM government that have never worked, even when they were rolled out to even the lowest level, such as villages. We earlier on in the show,
I think the Emyoga is actually at the constituency level.
We enumerated a carcasses of all these government development initiatives, and the PDM and Emyoga are going to be the latest carcasses in government development programs that do not work. Why? Because government should first of all run away from handouts mentality. That mentality. In fact, it is my role to pay school fees for my children. You see? It is my role to
But I think
provide
also
food.
As education as a public good, it should be your government's duty
Yeah,
to make sure that your child is educated. Because you
now
actually
now
get
you see
access
now
in
you see
that
the
regard.
question. Yeah, you see now what that brings us to is that if government plays their duty, then public education will be good. And
Exactly.
because I went to a public school, Shimoni, it was actually the second best or the best in the whole country. But you see, my parents, when I look through the receipts nowadays of what they used to pay, I think they used to pay 38,000 shillings, and that was in the 90s. And so if, for example, you had public schools like Nakasero, in fact, government schools were better. You had Nakasero, you had Chitante, you had Buganda Road, you had Bad Valley, you had all these things. So if we had not given away, if government had not run away, had not abdicated its public goods thesis, because you see, maybe also by saying everyone crying that government to Yambe, everyone going for handouts, the resource envelope of the country cannot match the provision of better public facilities. Now, if, for example, Mulago is still the best hospital in Uganda,
And you
and
first prefer hospital
I am a
option.
cow, and my mother is sick, I know I will take my mother to Mulago cheaply because the public system works. If Shimoni is still better than Home is Darling, I would definitely not take my son to Home is Darling. I'll take my son to Shimoni because it's a public school, affordable, and of even the same or better quality. Look at countries like UK. Look at countries like UK. Even when you have very top elite schools like Eton College, there is absolutely no difference between cognition of a student who went into a public school and one who went into that school.
True.
But now, you have Mulago not working, Shimoni is dead, and you have a chief administrative officer who you pay 1.2 million. Now, when his mother is sick, he will not want his mother to die. He will steal public parish development model money and take the mother not to die at case clinic because Mulago is dysfunctional. He will not, he will, if Shimoni is dead, Bad Valley is dead, he's going to steal money and take his child. He's going to steal public parish development model money and take his child to Kampala Parents, to Green Hill Academy. So it is systemic. Yeah, it is systemic, and we shouldn't think that this is something we can solve in just one go. That is why I always say, let us look at bigger perspectives. Let's focus on durable solutions. And then let's move away from handout perspective and have a minimal state which can be efficient. And then the rest of us can do our responsibilities.
Honorable Aleper, as we wind down here, will the parish development model provide kid, if not anything, a little bit, a semblance of development within the Karamoja region?
Yeah, well, I'm sure the time is so short, but I just want to say that with the parish development model, it was hurriedly thought out, and also hurriedly rolled out.
Yeah.
They should have been given time after the thought out, first of all, to be theoretically evaluated, and then eventually, when it was supposed to be rolled out, possibly piloting it would have done. Because now we are learning everything on the job. Okay? Now, as we speak now, when I had an interaction with the Ministry of Finance, they said they have released over 75% of the money. But in real terms, I think not all this money is yet accessible to the people. What I know is most of the people, or most of the SACCOs in the parishes that have received this money have not yet accessed this money. There are process problems. One, they have been issuing guidelines every other periodic time, and guideline after guideline. Now, they are even stuck on how to start using this.
And so there's a lot of red tape.
Yes, there's a lot of red tape. So even now to use the money, there must be some new guidelines that might be out. So that's one, for those who have accessed the money. But in Karamoja, I can say now, what I've seen is there are 2 districts. I saw the district of Napak. I received some money, I think about 24 parishes. The district of Moroto, I received some money. But my district of Nakapripri, district of Nabilatu, at least I had not yet received the money. You know, we are now in February. February is the second last month of the third quarter.
Yes.
In other words, I don't think there's any more money that can be released this quarter. This quarter. So what am I saying? Money has not been released. Some of the people have not yet been. There is now training that is required to be given to this group, even if the money came. How long will the training take? When will you start putting this into action? So most likely it will not deliver.
Remember, you also returned the money if you don't spend it.
It will surely be returned. So what am I saying? It will not deliver for Karamoja. At least for this year, it will not deliver as with the expectation that we care. Because the time it has taken for the money to be there is long, and then even accessing the money has been a problem. So it will not deliver.
Interesting. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me today. It's been quite a revealing conversation, especially because it reminds me of the need for citizen consciousness on the critical issues that are happening in this country and how citizens can be empowered to hold their leaders accountable, especially to their beneficial, the things that they should be benefiting from. From me to you, the viewer, I would still imagine that we need a government overhaul, a complete change of the system. But that's an utopian, ideal. In any case, it would not happen in this lifetime.
Then maybe we change faces if we cannot change the system.
But I'm calling you to hold your leaders accountable. We can no longer have another Temangalo go unanswered, another NSSF scandal go unanswered, and particularly, we cannot let the people of Karamoja go into another season with unanswered issues around these iron sheets and the gods. From me to you, thank you for joining us. Be sure to catch us next week. Bye.